We are fresh off UFC 304, where my official picks were absolutely garbage. And now we're going to be looking at UFC Abu Dhabi. And just a quick look, we're going to go over every single fight. I'll give you an early pick, but these are not the official picks. If you wait towards the middle of the week, Wednesday or Thursday, that's when I drop my official picks after I dive deeper into all the film, the stats. But I like to do this because it's good for me to just kind of look at this card, analyze it, and also give you my early thoughts based on what we know of these fighters. Some of them have been in the UFC for quite some time. Some of them have a couple fights. Some of them are making their UFC debut. So without any further ado, let's scroll all the way to the bottom where we start with an absolute banger here. Sandhagen Dumas. Honestly, this card is just, it's okay. I mean, it really ain't that great. I mean, it's a fight night, so it's okay. It's okay, but, and it's not at the Apex, which is great, but this card is kind of low level. Either way, Sandhagen Dumas taking on Denis Tiuliulin. So this fight was supposed to happen on Saudi Arabia, and then I think there were some visa issues. They move it to this location in Abu Dhabi, so relatively the same area of the world. Dumas, I think I picked Dumas to beat Tiuliulin when I first broke it down, 4 weeks ago? And I'm going to take him here. Based on Dumas having the better striking, I think he's more durable, and I think he could probably get takedowns as well. Tiuliulin has some very, very poor takedown defense. Not a great ground game. Absolutely, a really bad ground game. His only win in the UFC is Jamie Pickett. That says a lot because Jamie Pickett is pretty damn bad. And Tiuliulin on the feet, very hittable. I think Dumas should be able to piece him up on the feet, and I think he can take a punch a little bit better. I will say, though, how he folded against Josh Fremd was absolutely unbelievable, considering how Josh Fremd has looked. I don't think Josh Fremd can hurt anybody on the feet, and he kind of hurt Sandhagen Dumas. So maybe I'm giving him a little bit too much credit for his durability on the feet. Yeah, and he did cover up against Nursultan, but I think he's a little bit more durable than Tiuliulin. Like, Tiuliulin goes in there to scrap, but he's just so hittable on the feet that he gets hit hard, he gets hit clean, he gets taken down to the ground, and then he gets put away on the ground because he doesn't have a good ground game. Not that Dumas is going to go in there and just roll through Tiuliulin, but I think he's got a little bit brighter of a future in the UFC. I think he's a little bit more skilled. He's got a lot more upside, let's just say that. Tiuliulin's old. He only really got in the UFC because he took a fight on short notice. At least Dumas got a win on the Contender Series, proved himself, got in the UFC, took a loss, picked up a couple dubs, and then another loss. But I think he should be able to beat Tiuliulin here. Tiuliulin's just, he's terrible. And Dumas really ain't that good, but I think he beats him on the feet. Maybe not by the biggest margin, but I think he beats him on the feet, and he can get takedowns on Tiuliulin. He showed that he can lay in the guard if he needs to against Cody Brundage. That's how he beat Cody, which is absolutely crazy. But he just laid in the guard, so he could do that as well if he needs to, and he can pick up a win. So I'll take Sandhagen Dumas for an early pick. Moving on, we got Herbert and Rolando Bedoya. So Bedoya is 0-2 in the UFC. But I'm not ready to write him off, man. I'm not ready to write him off. He's the younger guy here. And from what we've seen from Bedoya, super high output on the feet. He's just going to throw leg kicks, tap, 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 throw in combination. He's a shoot-the-box guy that's going to he's all action. He's going to throw it at you. He's pretty durable. I mean, he took Chaos Williams' best shots. He went to a close fight with Chaos Williams. And then he was a big favorite to beat Song Kanon in, I think that was UFC Singapore. And he lost, which was a terrible look because Song Kanon is not good. And I think he got dropped once in that fight, but didn't get knocked out. He outlanded him by a lot, but he still lost the fight. Just couldn't, Kanon was just landing the better punches throughout the rounds, and Bedoya was just there pitter-pattering. He's going to be at a little bit of a height and reach disadvantage here against Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert is getting a little bit older. He's a skilled fighter. Like, Jai Herbert's a skilled fighter, but he just doesn't always put it together. Like, he's got a great frame. He's got good kicks. He's got an okay wrestling game, too, but he just doesn't always put it together. He just doesn't have a lot of output on the feet, too. If he was able to put up 4 significant strikes per minute, I'd like him a lot more just to keep up with the pace of Bedoya. But he is the veteran here, and I think my early lean is going to go to Jai Herbert, considering he's got the height and reach advantage. He does have an improved wrestling game. I think he took down Kyle Nelson, won the fight that way, and Kyle Nelson looks pretty good right now. So I will take Jai Herbert for an early pick, but if Rolando Bedoya is an underdog and even, a bigger underdog, maybe I consider playing it because it seems like a buy low spot on Bedoya. He's 0-2 in the UFC, back up against the wall, and Jai Herbert is older, doesn't really always shine the brightest in the octagon. Like, I feel like he could do a lot better, but he just doesn't always do it. So Jai Herbert's the early lean. But from a betting perspective, these aren't bets, by the way. They're not bets. These are just early picks of like, who do I think is going to win? From a betting perspective, if Bedoya is an underdog or a big underdog, I might try to look that way. Victoria Dudakova and Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes, always love me some Sam Hughes, but it was pretty evident in her last fight that she's all heart and not a lot of skill. Not a lot of athleticism, pretty slow, doesn't hit hard. She can't really get any respect from her opponent on the feet. And then you look at her wins in the UFC, it's like Jacqueline Amaram just gassing out after the first round. She takes down Elise Reed, who has no ground game, ground and pounds her out. Beats Estela Nunes because Estela Nunes gassed out. And then everybody else she loses to. I think she's been an underdog like every single fight in the UFC, but she's managed to pick up a few wins. She's tough. That's her best asset is that she's tough and she's got good cardio. On the other side, Dudakova, much younger, much higher ceiling. I think she's got a pretty good wrestling game, and in her last fight, she showed a pretty good striking game. But I do have my cautions with Dudakova. I just don't really think she has the greatest striking. Like her striking performance in the UFC was against Jinyu Frey, who's like 37, 38 years old. I think she got cut after that, and is really super small for the weight class too. Not that Sam Hughes is super big, but Dudakova, I think she could probably get takedowns here against Sam Hughes. I think she'll probably be faster on the feet, and she's got good footwork from what I've seen in the last fight against Jinyu Frey. So I'll take Dudakova for an early pick, but I do love me some Sam Hughes. So if Sam Hughes is a big underdog, I might try to look that way. It's women's MMA as well, you know. Can never go wrong with a women's MMA underdog, but for now I'm going to take Dudakova for a pick. Guram Kutateladze taking on Jordan Vucenic. Making his UFC debut. Short notice. I think Guram was who was he supposed to take on? I forget. But either way, Vucenic is making his UFC debut. A guy that's been in Cage Warriors for a long time. I think he probably should have been in the UFC maybe a fight or two ago. He's got a win over Paul Hughes, who's like the PFL's biggest signing, I guess. And he was in Cage Warriors for a long time. Got a win over him. Also took a loss to him in a rematch. But he's also got a win over Margan Charrier. And he's a good fighter, man. I think he deserves to be in the UFC, but he's getting a real tough matchup here in Guram. You know, Guram hasn't had the greatest run in the UFC, but we've obviously seen the potential that he has. Like, he has loads of potential, but he's had some fights where he's having close fights, loses the decisions, and then losing to Elvis Brener in the third round in a fight that he was winning, an absolute dog fight. Talk about Elvis Brener later on this card, but this looks to me like Guram should win. I mean, Vucenic, he does have some very close fights. He's got like 3 or 4 split decisions in Cage Warriors. And honestly, I'm kind of a Cage Warriors fader, man. I'm not a real believer in these guys that come over from Cage Warriors. Of course, you get, you know, the Paddy Pimblets, the Conor McGregor. Like, you get those guys. But I don't know. Some of them just don't always pan out. They just don't pan out, and it seems like Cage Warriors is kind of, it's boom or bust, really. You get one guy, a couple guys that are really good. You like the Ian Garys, a couple guys that are really good, and then you get a lot of guys that just don't really pan out. We'll see what Jordan Vucenic can do, but I think Guram should probably get a win here. I would expect him to be a big favorite. He's almost always been a big favorite in most of his fights. And especially a guy making his debut, he'll probably be a favorite. So I'm going to go with Guram Kutateladze for an early pick. Shamil Gaziev and Dante Almeida. Shamil Gaziev, man. First fight back after that brutal performance against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I don't know what to think of him, man. I mean, his win against Martin Budaj looked really good, and then his loss to Rosenstruck looked really bad. But you got to take into account how different the heavyweight division is between the top 10 and the guys that are outside the top 15. The guys outside the top 15 are pretty freaking awful. And then the guys inside the top 10, they stay there because they just beat the guys outside the top 10. And there's not a lot of movement. You don't really get a bunch of prospects coming in, and there's not a lot of movement between the top 10 and the top 15. It's like the guys that stay there, they stay there. So Gaziev taking on a guy outside the rankings here in Don'Tale Mayes. And I have always been a Don'Tale Mayes fader, but I got to give it to him. The guy has a pretty good chin. The times that he struggles is when he gets submitted. And at times he's super low volume on the feet. For a guy that's 6'6", you would expect him to like use his reach. Never does. I don't know what his game plans ever are. I don't even think he has a game plan. He just kind of goes out there and fights. He can get takedowns sometimes. Doesn't always go to him. But he's just super low volume. And I don't really expect Don'Tale Mayes to have a ton of success against Gaziev. But Gaziev doesn't really do it for me either. So, honestly, I would just... It's low-level heavyweights. But for an early pick, I guess I'm going to go with Gaziev. Considering we're in Abu Dhabi, where, you know, the names that end in V usually do pretty well. So I'm going to go with Gaziev for an early pick. Not really looking to bet this guy, though. Not until he proves me, gives me some type of life that he's okay. Because that performance against Rosenstruck was so bad that I need to see something before I ever put money on this guy ever again. And Don'Tale Mayes, never been a fan, never been a believer. So not really sure if I would ever place a bet on Don'Tale Mayes, and I don't think I would take Gaziev either, but I will take Gaziev for an early pick. Moving on. We got Muhammad Yahya taking on Fernandes. So Fernandes lost his debut last year against Mark Diakese, and Diakese was in his crotch-sniffing era, which is definitely his best attribute, because that dude's tough to not get taken down by. And Fernandes was getting taken down, getting controlled on the ground. But that was his UFC debut. It's a tough matchup. I mean, if you're taking on Diakese, you got to be able to defend takedowns or at least threaten with submissions. And Fernandes, not really ready for that in his UFC debut. On the other side, Muhammad Yahya took on Trevor Peek in his UFC debut in the last Abu Dhabi card. And pretty disappointing, honestly. I mean, he's the only... fighter that was like born, I think he's from Abu Dhabi, at least born in the UAE, reps the UAE. He's like the Abu Dhabi guy. They got him in there for the card, I guess, basically because they wanted a guy on the card. They probably told the UFC, we need a guy from the UAE on this card. And they brought him in. They gave him Trevor Peek. And he didn't look good against Trevor Peek. I mean, Trevor Peek is probably one of the most hittable dudes in the UFC. The guy literally blocks punches with his face. And Yahya wasn't landing much at all. So he's low volume on the feet. He was getting taken down by Trevor Peek, and Trevor Peek ain't the best wrestler. I mean, he's strong, but he ain't the best wrestler. And Trevor Peek worked this dude for 3 rounds, really. So I don't really think too highly of Yahya, and we haven't really seen too much from Fernandes to really be a believer in it. But I will say a loss to Diakese due to wrestling and not being able to really get anything going on the feet is a bit better in my mind than a loss to Trevor Peek where you can't land anything and you're getting taken down. So I will take Fernandes for an early pick. I think these guys are both strikers at their base, and they both got wrestled up. But I think Diakese is the better wrestler, much harder to hit. So that's why I'm going to go with Fernandes. Moving on, we got Azamat Murzakanov taking on Alonzo Menifield. So Murzakanov, still undefeated, man. Still undefeated. I think he's like 35, 36, and Menifield is up there too. I mean, I think he's like 36 or 37. Menifield coming off the loss to Olberg, where he just blitzed the guy like from the jump and then just got clipped. I don't know what the hell he was doing, but I don't know. Pat Barry was just in his corner telling him, get him, Alonzo. And then he just ran across the cage and got clipped. Got knocked out in like the first 15 seconds, something like that. So he was on a good winning streak, though, and then he takes that bad loss. He's back in the octagon pretty quickly, though. I mean, he got kind of got flatlined. So it's a little concerning on the Menifield side as far as the chin goes. But Murzakanov, still undefeated, really solid striker. He's not big for the weight class. Like, he's 5'10" at light heavyweight, but he is pretty thick. He's strong, and he's picked up a couple good wins. I mean, what he did to Jacoby was pretty impressive. Was just picking his shots, landing the better shots. Even took him down a couple of times. I mean, I think he's good. He's good all around, but at his base, he's a striker. And I think Menifield does not have the technical striking to stand and strike with Murzakanov, but he does throw big looping hooks, and maybe he can land something. And then the wrestling game, I'm not going to take Menifield to wrestle him up for 3 rounds, nor do I think he can really mix it in to make it worthwhile. So I'm going to take Murzakanov. I think he's the much more technical striker. I think he hits hard. I think he's got a solid base on him. He's got an OV in his last name. That's always good to see, especially in Abu Dhabi. And I think he probably get this one done. So I'll take Azamat Murzakanov for an early pick. To the main card, we got Yoel Alvarez taking out Elvis Brener. And last time out, Elvis Brener was a big dog against Miktabek Oralbai. And a lot of people were on Elvis Brener. But I'm like, man, Miktabek Oralbai, that dude may be 26, but he's got thousands of years of experience. And he felt that. He just drained the gas tank of Elvis Brener early, hit him with a big shot. Elvis Brener, for that guy to stay in that fight was pretty impressive. Elvis Brener's got all the heart in the world. He's got some pretty heavy hands, too. And if you look at his record, he's got a lot of submissions. Now, Yoel Alvarez is not the most active guy, but he is a big dude for 155. We'll see if he makes the weight. If he misses weight, I'm betting on the dude. If he misses weight, I'm betting on him. Because everybody that misses weight nowadays, they win. That's just how it goes. You miss weight, you're going to win. You go in there with an advantage, you're going to win. So we'll see if Yoel Alvarez makes the weight. But yeah, 6'3", long frame. He has awful takedown defense, but really what he's trying to do is get taken down so he can use the jiu-jitsu. The guy's got double-digit amount of submissions on his record. Not a lot of TKOs. And really where he struggled is dudes that will take him down like an Arman Sarukian and just pound his face in. Guys that you can't submit. I don't know that Elvis Brener's going to take him down and just pound his face in. We'll see. We'll see. He could. I mean, he's a great grappler, tough dude. But I'm going to go with Yoel Alvarez for an early pick. I think he's going to be longer. I think Elvis Brener might be a little bit overrated at this point, just based on the Guram win. This is a guy that was a massive underdog against Zubaira Tukhugov. Was not supposed to win that fight. Won by robbery. Then took on Guram. Was losing the fight, getting his ass whooped. And then pulled it out of the fire in the 3rd round. And then knocked out Kenan Khrushchevsky in the 1st round. It was a short notice fight for Khrushchevsky. Khrushchevsky just lost to Kurt Holloway. So I think he might be a little bit overrated. I mean, he's got a lot of heart. And he's got some good skills. But Yoel Alvarez has been around the top 25, top 20 for a while. He hasn't always been the most active, but he is very good. So I'm going to go with Yoel Alvarez. Mackenzie Dern and Lupi Godinez. It's an interesting one because I've had my ups and downs with Lupi Godinez. In her last fight against Verna Jandiroba, I didn't actually bet it, but I was thinking Verna, I do love me some Verna. A lot of people might hate on her, but I do love me some Verna. And Verna was an underdog against Lupi Godinez, and I'm like, Lupi probably shouldn't be a favorite here. Now, Lupi's been a favorite in almost every single fight in the UFC. And she's had a lot of duds. I'll never forget when I bet on her against Angela Hill, and I'm like, take Angela Hill down, man. That's where Angela Hill struggles. This was before Angela Hill started, wrestling, grows up. Take Angela Hill down. And no, Lupi Godinez decided to stand and strike with Angela Hill for 3 rounds. And that was the first time Angela Hill won as an underdog. She was 0-8 before that. Lupi Godinez was the first victim of the underdog Angela Hill. So I'll never forgive her for that. But I think this is actually a tough matchup for Lupi Godinez as well. Because Mackenzie Dern, for how awful she is on the feet, she's very fucking tough. She will take a punch almost like she enjoys it. Like she enjoys getting dropped. But she'll take a punch, and if you try to take her down, which is one of Lupi's best attributes, is getting takedowns. If you try to take her down, it's probably not the best move. because she could sweep you off of her back. She can throw up arm bars. She can go for legs. Very, very good grappler. You have to give her that. And she's aggressive on the feet. So she's not a girl that's just going to stand there and take the punches. She's going to go forward. So you got to be a good counter striker. I don't know that Lupi's a good counter striker. I think she's pretty good when she's the one going first and kind of knowing what combination she's about to throw. I don't know that she's that great on the feet. So, and Mackenzie Dern has been fighting a lot better competition. Like, Lupi had a great 2023. I think she was like 4-0, 5-0. But it was against some pretty bad competition. And Mackenzie Dern has a lot of losses in the UFC, but they're against good girls. So I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern for an early pick. But definitely one I want to look at some more film and assess it, because I know the line is pretty close. And this is one where I think you could probably get a good price on Mackenzie Dern if everything checks out. If everything checks out. We'll see. Tony Ferguson, Michael Chiesa. So Tony Ferguson, 7-fight losing streak. We all know that. Looks absolutely awful. He's 40 years old. But he's getting Michael Chiesa, man. Michael Chiesa hasn't had a win in like 3 years either. So Michael Chiesa lost 3 fights in a row. This dude is constantly working the desk for the UFC. You got a question. What's he doing it for at this point? What is he doing it for? Is he just going out here? Maybe it's his retirement fight. We'll see. Maybe it is. Maybe it's Tony's retirement fight too. Maybe we get a double retirement fight. But for once, I think Tony's getting a fight that's actually possibly winnable. Like, before, he's fighting up-and-comers or like guys that are still relatively in their prime and still competing with the top 15. I don't think that's Michael Chiesa. Now, I know this is a welterweight fight, so Tony's going up to 170. Might be a little bit undersized. Chiesa might be the bigger guy. Chiesa could probably get takedowns on Tony. But you also got to look at Michael Chiesa's weakness. It's that damn Darce choke. Tony's got like 3 or 4 Darce chokes in the UFC. And in my opinion, if you're just going to go in there and try to wrestle up and grapple with Tony, I think you're giving him a better chance to win than if you're gonna box him up on the feet or kickbox with him, because he's just super slow. He's super slow on the feet at this point, doesn't have the reactions, doesn't have the movement, doesn't have the timing at all on the feet anymore. I think that's where people are getting the best of him. But in the grappling department, I think he could probably still grapple. I mean, he's 40 years old. I think you could still grapple when you're 40. You may not be able to, get in and out, slip a punch to give one back, like type of thing. So I think Tony could be a little bit live here, man. And he's a big underdog. He's a real big underdog. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to take a guy that's on a 7-fight losing streak. I'm just not going to. Not going to. Maybe I'll get there from a betting perspective if the line just keeps moving up. But for an early pick, I think Michael Chiesa should win this fight. He should win this fight. You should not lose to Tony Ferguson in 2024. You just shouldn't. If you do, you should probably hang him up. So I'll take Michael Chiesa for an early pick. But Tony, there's a little bit of life there for Tony. There's a little bit of life. Marlon Vera versus Deiveson Figueiredo. So I think Deiveson should win this fight, but I will say this. I've never been a Cheeto guy, but Cheeto's wins. When Cheeto fights 36-year-olds, he wins. Okay, you look at all of his wins, but his last 5 wins, I think, are all against guys that are either 35 or older. Davison's 36. And you got to remember, he was an flyweight, ex-125er, moved up to bantamweight. Now he picked up 2 wins. Now, granted, those wins were to Rob Font, who at the time was top 10, I believe. And he just beat Cody Garbrandt. Now, I was pretty shocked with how slow Deiveson looked on the feet against Cody Garbrandt in the first round. And then he got the takedown, and he used his grappling there. I think it would be really smart of him to use the grappling in this one against Cheeto, because for one, Cheeto's a very slow starter, and he's struggled with the takedowns early, especially against Corey Sandhagen. The dude literally laid on his back for like the first 2 or 3 rounds against Corey. Did nothing. So I think Deiveson should come out with this with a game plan of trying to get him to the ground early, take the life out of him, get on him early, because Cheeto's slow starter because he wants to get his reads, he wants to get his timing, so that later in the fight he can try to land a big blow, because he's not a high volume guy. He gets hit all the time. He's just super durable, and he does have some pop in his shots, and he has some good timing after he's been in the cage with you for 10 plus minutes. But if he can't get his reads early, you take him down early, then he's off his game. Then he's just can't get any reads, can't get any timing on the feet. So Deiveson should come out here, take him down early, do your work there, and then coast. You win the first 2 rounds, okay, take him down again. Don't get knocked out. Davison's been pretty durable throughout his career. I don't see him finishing Cheeto. Cheeto's never been finished. He's just a guy that takes hella damage and continues to walk through. But I think Deiveson should probably win this fight because Cheeto never, ever goes out there and fights. It just never does. I can never trust this guy to go out there and fight. I just can't. So I'll take Deiveson Figueiredo. Co-main event. Shara Magomedov and Michal Oleksiejczuk. Now, this is a weird one because Oleksiejczuk just got armbarred like a month ago. And it looked like he got like dislocated. But I guess he didn't. And he's stepping in to fight Shara Magomedov. And Magomedov is a guy that I think is still up there for a fraud check. Still up there. Because one, this guy does not let his hands go. He hides behind his kicks. He hides behind his kicks so much that he almost just keeps his hands by his waist and just slap kicks, slap kicks, slap kicks. And Oleksiejczuk's a guy that's going to march you down, and he's just going to throw big overhand lefts. And if he can get into the range of Shara, then he's live. But I don't think Oleksiejczuk at this point, it really cares if he wins or loses. I think he's just fighting for paychecks. I think he is. I mean, there's no reason he should be taking this fight. He just lost a month ago. I mean, maybe it was 2 months ago. I think it was 301. No, 302. But either way, I don't think he should be able to be taking this fight. And it looks like he's taking it for a paycheck. And honestly, if you give the slightest bit of pushback to Oleksiejczuk, at times he's just going to fold up. Now, he's always been a loser to the submission, and I don't think Shara Magomedov is going to lock up any type of submission. We'll see. But on the feet, if Oleksiejczuk can get inside the void with Magomedov, then he's got a good chance. But I don't know. I think he'll probably just get a win. I think this is probably a setup win for Magomedov. But he's still on the fraud check radar. I will say that. But I'll take Shara Magomedov for a pick. To the main event, we got Corey Sandhagen, Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, I want to give Corey the benefit of the doubt here and take Corey. And maybe there's some value on Corey as an underdog. But I don't know, man. I think Umar is so damn good. He's so fluid on the feet. The fact that he has very, very elite striking, to me, is the ultimate equalizer here. Because I don't think Corey is going to be able to piece him up on the feet. I don't think Corey is necessarily going to be able to take Umar down and control him. I don't think Corey is going to be able to stuff every takedown from Umar. So I think eventually Umar is going to be able to get his game going. And Corey is just going to be losing minutes. Because Umar's really hard to hit. We have seen him. He got rocked by the Azat. What's it? Azat Beksat his last time out. He got rocked with a right hand, but then immediately shot in on a takedown, got the takedown, rode out the rest of the control time. So I think Umar's the real deal, man. Not that I would bet him at, minus 250, but I would take him for a pick. It seems like the UFC would love, Umar to win. Get that Nurmagomedov name in there. We haven't had a Nurmagomedov in a while. Get that Nurmagomedov name in the bantamweight title picture. Corey's a guy that I truly believe in as well. I think he's very good. But on the feet, he doesn't have the hardest punches, for one. So I don't think Umar's going to be... I don't think he's going to have to respect what's coming at him. Now that Corey's very, very tricky with his strikes, and I think maybe that could knock Umar off his game a little bit. But I think Umar's just going to stay with his techniques. I think he can hit Corey with his kicks. He's got amazing kicks. And when you're a good wrestler and you have good kicks, you can hide behind the kicks, and then once they're in range, you level change and you get him to the ground. I think that's probably what he does here. So I'm going to take Umar Nurmagomedov for an early pick. But once again, these are early picks, early leans. I get this video out to you guys just so you know where my head's at. And you can drop your comments down below if you got any thoughts on this card or any disagreements or any agreements that you had with me throughout the video. And then after this, we dive into the tape. And we go a lot deeper. We get into the lab. We cook it all up. We dial up the official picks. That video drops on Wednesday or Thursday. We get the bets in, and then I give you the best bet show on Friday. Appreciate y'all for watching. Until next time, AJ Picks. Signing out.